Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. Number 24 Mississippi State takes on number 6 Alabama this Saturday, and both teams are in desperate need of a bounce-back victory. The Bulldogs are coming off a loss on the road to Kentucky, while Alabama is coming off their heartbreaking loss to Tennessee. But luckily in this game, history is on Alabama's side. The Crimson Tide have won 14 straight over the Bulldogs, only 2 of them coming by 1 possession. The Crimson Tide have won the last 4 over the Bulldogs by a combined score of 152-16. And they've defeated Mike Leach 2 times by a combined score of 90-9. So will Alabama pull off another massive victory over the Bulldogs, or will Mississippi State pull off the massive upset in Tuscaloosa? That is what we are here to break down and predict today. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. We're so glad you could join us today. Our final Game of the Week video for Week 8. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country for one of the lowest prices in the entire country. Guys, we're beating out over 80% of the national analysts each of the last 4 years. If you want our spread prediction for this game and hundreds of others, you should go sign up for that today and become a part of our GE Nation. So let's dive into this game, guys. Again, it's a top 25 matchup, but both teams are reeling a little bit after a loss. What is going to happen to Alabama or Mississippi State? Well, you take a look at the offenses, guys. Mississippi State, we know they're all about the air raid. The Bulldogs want to air it out. They're averaging 333 passing yards per game, and they have one of the best quarterbacks in the conference in Will Rogers, who has thrown for over 2,300 yards, 23 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions. They also do a very good job, Mississippi State, of spreading the wealth. There's not really one big-time top wide receiver. Caleb Ducking is, of course, phenomenal, but 9 players have at least 100 reception yards. So they are spreading the wealth. They're airing it out to a plethora of wide receivers, running backs, guys like that. But last week, though, in their loss on the road to Kentucky, Mississippi State was held to 203 passing yards. Kentucky cracked the code. They found a way to shut down the air raid. And then you look a little bit deeper, how Mississippi State has fared against Alabama in the last few years since Mike Leach took over. The Bulldogs were held to 163 passing yards in 2020, and while they did throw for 300 passing yards last year, they threw 3 interceptions in a 41-9 loss. That's a problem. Alabama, like Kentucky, has seemed to crack the code against Mike Leach and the air raid. You look at Alabama, their offense is still phenomenal, per usual. Everybody wants to dog on them following the loss to Tennessee. Well, in that game against Tennessee, they still had 569 total yards and 49 points. Not too bad. Overall, the Crimson Tide, guys, 513 yards per game, 45 points per game, over 275 passing yards per game, over 235 rushing yards per game. They are airing it out. They can ground it out. They can beat you in all aspects of the game offensively, guys. And, of course, it all starts with Bryce Young, their star quarterback, a guy who has thrown for over 1,600 yards, 16 touchdowns, and just 3 interceptions so far this year. Similar to Mississippi State, though, Alabama really hasn't had that one go-to wide receiver. The Crimson Tide have 7 players that have at least 100 reception yards. They have a great running back in Jahmyr Gibbs, who's kind of carrying the load there. But there's no true number 1 wide receiver. There's no Jamison Williams. There's no Devontae Smith. There's no, Jalen Waddle, guys like that. The number 1 wide receiver right now is Ja'Cory Brooks, who has 302 yards and 4 touchdowns this year. They don't have that go-to guy. That's kind of been hurting Alabama offensively a little bit. But the thing is, guys, bottom line, it's probably not going to matter too much on Saturday because they're facing a Mississippi State defense that, while yes, many are considering to be the best yet under Mike Leach, the best one he's had, one that's only giving up 21.9 points per game, one that's only giving up 375.1 total yards per game, they're facing a defense at Mississippi State that might be a tad bit overrated. Last week, guys, against Kentucky, the Bulldogs gave up 478 yards to Kentucky, 239 passing yards and 239 rushing yards. And that's a major concern to me because if you look at that game, Kentucky coming into that game had no rushing offense whatsoever. The Wildcats were averaging less than 100 rushing yards per game before they played Mississippi State. And against the Bulldogs, they rushed for 239 yards. Cavassier Smoke, Chris Rodriguez, they woke up. But that's a major concern for me if I'm Mississippi State because now you're facing a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs who can light up any sort of defense. They're facing an Alabama team that can ground it out and set up the pass, and they're setting up the pass from the best quarterbacks in the country. You look a little bit deeper, guys. Yes, Mississippi State's defense has been okay. 14 forced turnovers this year, including 9 interceptions, so it could be an issue for Bryce Young a little bit. But we always say, if you want to beat Alabama, how are you going to do it? You've obviously got to win the turnover battle. You've got to hope they beat themselves with penalties, and you got to hope you can air it out. Well, Mississippi State, we know, can air it out. We know they can throw. Last week, Tennessee had 385 passing yards. Alabama didn't have an answer for them. Of course, they have had an answer for the air raid. We had to talk about penalties. Tennessee had 6 penalties last week. Alabama had 17. Another game where Alabama nearly lost, Texas, Bama had, like 16 penalties? So beating themselves is how you hang in this game. And, of course, forcing turnovers. Obviously, Tennessee forced a turnover last week, was a crucial one in the game. Mississippi State has forced 14 turnovers on the day. They're going to need to have a Texas A&M type performance. The Aggies forced 4 turnovers against Alabama and Tuscaloosa, nearly pulled off the game, losing on the final play of the game. Well, technically had a shot to win it on the last play of the game. That's how you beat Alabama if you're Mississippi State. That takes a lot. That's a lot. And this is a team that just got burned on the ground against Kentucky and is now facing off against an Alabama team that is angry after a loss and now has a home game in Tuscaloosa. When you take a look at the Alabama defense, guys, again, everybody wants to dog on them and say how bad they were. Look, allowing 52 points, the most since like 1907, is not ideal. Getting torched by Tennessee is not ideal. But the Crimson Tide are still only allowing 296 yards per game. They're still only allowing 197.6 passing yards per game and just 98.6 rushing yards per game. And you can go ahead and scrap that rushing number, but Mississippi State's not going to run the ball. You know, we thought that they were kind of starting to find something. They had success against Texas A&M. They had success against Arkansas. Really didn't have any at all against Kentucky. So when now you're facing one of the best rushing defenses in the country, Mississippi State's not going to find that much success on the ground. So that's gone. It's air raid or nothing on Saturday. And Alabama and Nick Saban know that. They know they can hone in solely on that. Yes, their secondary has only produced 3 interceptions this year, but they're still giving up less than 200 passing yards per game. And if they can hold Mississippi State to under 200 yards, under 250 yards in this game, that'd be pretty dang impressive. Alabama's defense, give them a bunch of hate if you want. They're still a great unit, no doubt about it. So what's going to happen, guys? What's going to happen on Saturday in Tuscaloosa? I think the answer is pretty obvious. Bama is going to win big. I am all over Bama here. Obviously, stopping the air raid has not been an issue for Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. It just hasn't been. They shut it down really well in 2020. And yes, last year you go, well, they threw for 300 yards. Yeah, 300 yards and no touchdowns. 300 yards and a pick 6, really. So a touchdown for the other team. Alabama has done a good job of shutting down the air raid. Last year, guys, Alabama faced Mississippi State after the Crimson Tide lost to Texas A&M, beat the Bulldogs 41-9 in Starkville. I'm not saying the score is going to be about the same, but I do think it's going to be another beatdown. It's a night game in Tuscaloosa. Alabama is angry, and a dangerous Alabama, an angry Alabama is not one that you want to play. You never want to face Alabama after a loss. You never want to face them when they're looking to redeem themselves. And unfortunately for Mississippi State, they get that honor 2 years in a row. So the Bulldogs, guys, will fall in Tuscaloosa. Alabama will win big, flex their muscles a little bit, and will keep their names and keep their hopes alive for the SEC title and obviously a college football playoff berth, which is ultimately the goal for Nick Saban and the Tide. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country for one of the lowest prices in the entire country, beating out over 80% of the national analysts each of the last 4 years, and we want you to take advantage of those picks today. So take a look, become a part of our GE Nation, and once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.